just outrageous.
Our exhilarating journey across the continent continues as we bring you the very best in African football. A top referee shares his secret to success. Former champions are eliminated from the CAF Champions League. And a big man with a recognizable voice and an indomitable spirit shares some of his fondest moments.
And action.
When Mark Gleeson says action, the whole continent has come to expect nothing less than the best. The veteran commentator and African football historian remains evergreen. Having had to step in and paint a verbal picture during AFCON 2021, he's back, adding plenty of significance and colour to the CAF Champions League, while also imparting some football knowledge to some fresh-faced analysts in the South African game. Having spent decades now covering the African game, he's been there, done that all before, but the 58-year-old remains as humble as ever.
Welcome everyone, live coverage of a tough assignment for the Brazilians.
To be honest with you, I was lucky. I think a lot of these things, a lot of life's little journeys along the way have twists and turns and a little bit of luck, and I was lucky. I was lucky in the sense that I worked as a newspaper reporter at the Star in Johannesburg, and I'd already covered quite a bit of African football. I used to go on the weekends to watch, for example, Al Ahly, who are playing in South Africa now. I watched them play in Swaziland, in Mozambique, and I did a few reports about it. And in the 1990 World Cup was on South African television. Somebody phoned me and said, "Aren't you the guy who knows a little bit about African soccer?" The first game on TV was it was Argentina against Cameroon. And I said, "Yes, I know a little bit." They said, "Would you know a little bit to come on TV and tell us a little bit about the Cameroon side?" And I said, "Yes, I did know a little bit about Cameroon." And luckily for me, Cameroon won the game. So obviously there was sudden excitement about Cameroon, and they invited me back, and Cameroon went all the way to the quarterfinals. So I got a bit of television exposure, and from there I was offered an opportunity to commentate. But my point is, it was good luck, and I am thankful to the indomitable Lions of Cameroon for, in a way, kickstarting my journey, because if they'd lost that first game 2 or 3-0 to Argentina, I would never have been asked to come back and be a panelist on TV. And so my TV career is thanks to Cameroon.
We also extend our gratitude to the indomitable Lions for kickstarting the iconic career of an iconic African football figure. Gleeson, please do take us back a few years to when the continental game started to break through the South African borders.
In terms of African club competition and covering it, I think I watched some games in the late 80s. I watched, for example, when Peter Ndlovu and his brothers were still playing for Highlanders of Zimbabwe. They played in Bulawayo against Al Ahly of Egypt, who even in those days were the glamour side. And we in South Africa were isolated because of apartheid. We knew nothing really about African soccer, and so I was intrigued. And so I went to Bulawayo to see this famous Egyptian team, to see how strong they were, to maybe do an article on how, if South Africa was competing, how would we do against these guys? Just a hypothetical piece. So that's probably one of the first games I watched. I went to the 1990 final in Uganda, which was magnificent. It was very tough because I'm a South African passport holder, so in those days to travel in Africa was really, really tough. But I sent a lot of faxes and telexes, and I convinced a lot of people. Eventually they gave me a visa, and I watched this magnificent final in Kampala, 1990 I think it was. And then of course we started playing South Africa. We were competing from 93 onwards. So I've watched a lot of club competition games, and a lot of games obviously in the Nations Cup.
Nearly 30 years after Orlando Pirates lifted the title as kings of the continent, it's Mamelodi Sundowns who are flying the South African and COSAFA flag high in CAF competitions, and doing so with some distinction. It so happens to be the Brazilians whose performances stand out quite distinctly for Gleeson.
Ironically, the best match I've ever watched, I sat in the studio in Randburg, and I'm very sorry that it happened that way, but it wasn't the fault of SuperSport. It was a little bit of the problem of the television rights issue that we've had in African football over the last few years that's now been solved. So I commentated Mamelodi Sundowns beating Al Ahly 5-0, sitting in the box in Randburg, unfortunately, when I should have been at Super Stadium, Atteridgeville, watching it live. That's by far the best match I've seen. In fact, that's the best match involving a South African team that I've ever seen. I absolutely thought it was a magnificent performance. I mean, to beat the glamour club of African football 5-0. I mean, Al Ahly had not lost 5-0 for 80 years. That's what an achievement it was. I also remember very fondly the first leg of the final, Sundowns against Zamalek in 2016 at Atteridgeville. That was a great game to watch, a great game to commentate. Going back, I wasn't commentating, but I was there as a reporter. The final in 2001, when Sundowns lost to Al Ahly, they lost 3-0 in Cairo, but they actually played the Egyptians off the park, and the fans gave them a standing ovation at the end of the game. Even though Al Ahly won the competition, they had 3 chances, they scored 3 goals, they won 3-0. It was a bizarre result, but it was a really convincing performance from Sundowns. Those are the 3 ones that probably stick out for me.
South Africa's foothold on the African game is fast growing, says the veteran commentator.
Absolutely, there's endless numbers, to be honest with you. I mean, I think we as commentators were not there for the second leg of Sundowns winning the Champions League at Zamalek, at Alexandria, against Zamalek. I think I would love to have been there. I would love to have been even recently at Kaizer Chiefs against Al Ahly in Casablanca for the Champions League final there. The one that I really regret the most, that I didn't go to, and I made the choice. It was in 1993 when Pirates won the Champions Cup. It was the same weekend South Africa were playing Germany at Johannesburg Stadium. So it was either go to Abidjan to watch Pirates in the second leg, and already they'd drawn the first legs, they were going to lose in Abidjan. No one really gave them a chance. And so I decided, well, let me stay and rather watch Bafana play Germany. And of course, we know what happened in Abidjan. It was a magnificent victory for Pirates against all odds. Beautiful goal from Jerry Skosana. One of the great days of South African football. So to miss that was, I made the wrong choice.
After all these years, any signature phrases yet, Mr. Gleeson?
I don't know. It's a good question. It's a tough question. Several of my sound bites have been used in promos and stuff, and so I suppose those are the ones that readily come to mind.
If McCarthy can put this in the back of the net, it'll be a fairy tale story. McCarthy goes for goal! That will be the championship-winning goal from Benny McCarthy. Orlando Pirates get a massive repayment on the big money they've splashed out on McCarthy.
Kudos to you for that one.
It's been a dramatic group stage campaign for CAF Champions League holders Al Ahly. A late start saw them start slow in Group A, so much so that they needed to play catch-up when they entertained Al Merrikh of Sudan long after the group stages had started. The result, a 5-goal thriller in Cairo. The Egyptians made to sweat hard, having carved out a 2-0 cushion for themselves nice and early. A double from Mohamed Sharif had the champions quickly out the blocks. The visitors, though, made things a little more interesting on either side of the break. 2 minutes before half-time, they pulled one back through Tony Ejo Maregwe, and then with a little over 20 minutes remaining, parity was restored, courtesy of El Samani Sadildin. Surely there wasn't going to be an upset at the Cairo International Stadium. No, there wasn't. Unfortunately for centre-back Mustafa Kasum, in trying to deal with the danger, he had the final touch in beating his own keeper. Success for Al Ahly.
What about Sundowns match?
Well, the Sundowns match is always a difficult match, but we are Al Ahly also, eh?
Sundowns against Ali, I think it's probably the glamour fixture now in African football. It's quite strange that this is now the 4th year in a row these two clubs have met. This time in the group stage, the last couple were in the quarterfinals. I think although Ali have had perhaps the better over Sundowns in the last couple of years, that 5-0 loss for the Egyptians here in Gauteng still resonates heavily with them. I think they are still a little bit punch drunk from that particular game. Of course, that's how Pitso made his name with the Egyptians. They wanted to hire the guy who beat them 5-0 basically. So this has really become the glamour tie, and although today's match is not specifically do or die for both clubs, there's still more opportunity for points. I think a lot of what might happen further on down the line in this Champions League this season is going to be set out today. I think Al Ahly are going to come back strongly in the knockout phase. They're proficient at this level. They know how to win two-legged ties home and away, perhaps better than Sundowns. Sundowns perhaps know how to win the group better. Ali don't worry too much about if they're going to finish first or second in the group, but they know how to do the quarters, the semis, and the final. So if Sundowns can beat them home and away, I think it sends out a very strong marker. It's a lot of it is psychological, and if the Brazilians are convincing winners today, as well as having won in Cairo a fortnight ago, then I think everyone will be in real trepidation for them, and they will have a lot of more respect and circumspection from the other sides in terms of the way they approach the Sundowns games, which I think will suit Sundowns. So I think it's become really the glamour tie of this competition.
With a sprinkling of fans at the FNB Stadium, a double over the champions of the CAF Champions League was on the cards for Mamelodi Sundowns when they played host to Al Ahly, not long after stunning them back in Cairo. More than that, the Brazilians were looking for out control of Group A, while the Egyptians hunted revenge. A highly physical affair in Soweto played out, only to be decided by Namibian ace Peter Shalulile in the first half. He was on end to meet a corner and have the hosts ahead. From then on, warning shots were exchanged at either end, with none really telling. For a second time in as many matches, Sundowns had the better of the Egyptian adversaries. A warning to the rest of the competition that the South African champions are on a mission this season. On the field, sparks; off the field, the same. Some rather unsavory scenes tried to mar what was a great spectacle between two heavies of the African game. One does get the feeling that this won't be the last time they meet, this year alone.
It was a particularly exciting game. I thought it was very cagey in the beginning, quite tactical. Interesting to see how the two coaches set out their sides. Interesting to see the approach. I thought Sundowns' pressing was excellent in the first half. They certainly had a lot of chances. I thought they were a little bit sloppy at times, maybe a little bit arrogant, a little bit cocky. Could have got with a bit more clinical efficiency, maybe one or two more, but let's not be greedy. I mean, beating Al Ahly is no easy feat, and I think for South African football this is another good day. That's put Sundowns clear in the group, and it's given a strong message about their potential and their capabilities in this Champions League. I think overall South African football fans must be happy.
Match day 4 was certainly stingy with goals in Group A. When Sudanese giants met once again in Omdurman, a single goal would separate the victor from the beaten. The reverse fixture had been Al Merrikh's to savour thanks to an Al Samali Said El-Din brace in a 2-1 victory. This time though, Al Hilal had their say, the 3 points handed to them by Yasser Muzmal, who waited up until the 84th minute to steal the show. 1-0 winners and hopes of progress still very much alive. So then, 4 matches into Group A, Sundowns with all the control on 10 points, assured of a place in the quarterfinals, for the trailing 3, each on 4 points with 2 rounds remaining. A quick breather is certainly needed, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll look at all the action that highlighted the CAF Champions League in match day 4 and 5, some ambitions reinforced while others left in tatters. More on that after this.
It's just outrageous. That is just outrageous.
ES Sétif had last tasted victory in their opening group stage fixture, with their next 2 ending in disappointing defeat for the Algerians. While in contrast, Amazulu lost their opening group match, but followed that up with 2 consecutive victories to steer them 3 points clear of their opponents going into their match day 4 clash. The determined Algerian side were hungry for all 3 points, which would see them go level with Lesotho, and Sétif indeed put themselves in good stead very early on as Riyad Benayoud opened the scoring in the 11th minute. A second from Akram Janet on the stroke of halftime ensured that the hosts doubled their lead going into the break, a lead that would eventually secure the result for Setif and move them to 6 points with 4 matches played and, more importantly, ahead of AmaZulu on the standings in Group B. Meanwhile, the Group B log leaders Raja Casablanca faced the group's basement dwellers Horoya AC. Raja had a very impressive run in the group, managing to bag all 9 points on offer in their first 3 games and were expected to make light work of a Horoya outfit, who by contrast went into the game on the back of 3 straight defeats in their group matches. Raja were the first to score, but a gallant late surge and sustained pressure saw Horoya score 2 goals in 3 minutes, including a Yakuba Barry penalty, to come from a goal down to defeat the Moroccans, virtually blowing Group B wide open. ES Setif's victory moves them above Lesotho and into second position on the Group B standings, albeit only on goal difference. And with only 2 games remaining, Group B could be expected to produce a tightly contested duel for a last 8 berth.
The pretenders and contenders in Group C have been separated. Not much luck still for Botswana's Jwaneng Galaxy, who travelled to Algiers for a date against Belouizdad and were left firmly with their tails between their legs. Having done well to repel the hosts for 25 minutes and actually give as much as they got, the floodgates did open, the final score reading 4 goals to 1 to the hosts, yet to be beaten, with their visitors suffering a reverse for a 4th time in the group. The likes of Bakir in the 25th minute, Aribi in the 41st, Salmi in the 70th, and Merzogui in added time, ensuring the Algerians walk away with another set of 3 points. The disappointment of Etoile du Sahel's showings to date in the season's competition seems to know very little bound. They hosted fellow Tunisian outfit Esperance on match day 4. Without a victory yet, their wait was extended, not without trying though to keep the damage to a minimum. Having done well to keep their visitors at bay for over an hour, the dam wall did eventually break in the 66th minute. Abdelkader Bedran on hand to break the hearts of his countrymen, goal number 1 of an end-to-end contest in Tunis. The second came 10 minutes later. From range, Mohamed Ali Ben Ramdan lined up a shot and through the help of the woodwork had his goal. 2-0 and out were Esperance toe-to-toe with Belouizdad in setting the pace in Group C. Five points clear went the pair at the top, Esperance topping the standings courtesy of a better goal difference. Group honours certain to be decided on the final match day, with respective ties against Jwaneng and Etoile du Sahel coming up on match day 5. Last chance saloon for du Sahel, who after 4 match weeks had only amassed 3 points.
Thanks very much for this opportunity to interview me. My name is Eugene Kosnatio Mdluli. I am a SAFA referee who was so fortunate to be nominated to be an international referee. Obviously we go out and represent South Africa for the CAF matches and FIFA matches. I wanted to be a footballer, actually. When I grew up, I wanted to be a professional footballer, but it didn't happen. And then there was one guy who called me and he said, "Yeah, can you be a referee?" I said, "I'm afraid, because they always beat referees." But it took me one day, and then I officiated a match for under-11s, and then he said, "No, I can monitor you and I can mentor you, and then maybe you can be a ref one day." And that's how I started. It was 2005. Coming from Ekasi and football and refereeing, the only thing that I told myself, if I can identify a foul, then the rest, then I can learn it along the way. Then that's how I started. And then I had confidence in myself because I was a player, and then I took it from there. Maybe I'll say for preparation, I mean, it's different. But for me, I always study the teams. How do they play, how do they mark, how do they attack. But To be quite honest, it becomes a challenge when you go for the teams that you don't know, or maybe for the teams that you've never officiated. But I was so lucky on the day of that match that I recently did, because I had one of the top experienced assistant referees that we have in South Africa. Then, I mean, everything looked so smooth because he guided me, and our preparation was top. To be quite honest with you, the pressure is always there, and I mean, the pressure that we have, I mean, for me, I always say the pressure that we have, it doesn't come from the fans. It comes from home, the people that supports you, the people that's, I mean, behind you. You have to do your best. So if you're not doing your best, that means, I mean, you're disappointing a lot of people. So the fans, yeah, they are there to support their teams, and we have our supporters, we have our authorities. I mean, they put you in a match, I mean, they appoint you in a match because they trust you. So if you don't do your best, then you're letting them down. That's the pressure that we always have. But for the fans, for me, I mean, we are confident enough, I mean, to do every game that has fans, that has no fans. The pressure is still the same to us, because we have to give our best. If we're not giving our best, you know, we find ourselves in an awkward position where we are giving our authorities pressure as well. I would say PSL, I mean, it's more of tactical. I mean, if you read the game very well, you'll find that most of the teams, they give space, and then they mark zonal. So if you understand football, I mean, you'll understand that CAF, it's always speed. They challenge each other. So you have to prepare yourself. You have to be fit. You have to be mentally fit. And then some of them, they are cheating. So if you are not, I mean, in a good position, sometimes you will find yourself, I mean, giving some incorrect decisions. So in CAF, there is, I mean, a lot of pressure, especially when the team is playing home. They always think that they deserve to win. That's all. I mean, that's all we always find in CAF. That if the teams are playing at home, they think they deserve to win, even if they're not, I mean, playing very well. They're not scoring goals, because games are winning. They are won by scoring goals. Refereeing is all about learning and improving. So they always say you are as good as your last game. So not necessarily that you have to forget about it, but you have to take what you have to improve on, and then you implement it on training, and see whether you can use it in your match, in your next match or not. So it's not about forgetting at all about the match as it is. So you have to improve every time, because there is no one who is 100%.
And while the man in the middle looks to further his ambitions of being among the best on the continent, so too did the many Angolan fans who harbored ambitions of going all the way in the CAF Champions League. Petro de Luanda and Sagrada Esperança opened the Group D fixtures on match day 4 in an Angolan derby, with Sagrada Esperança having just 1 point in their 3 matches and looking to be on their way out of the competition. It was an absolutely dominant performance from Pedro de Luanda right from the onset, with skipper Thiago Azalau finding the back of the net in the opening minute and completing his brace some 43 minutes later after reacting quickest to a loose ball in the box. Sagrada Esperança's problems were further compounded when they conceded a penalty in the closing stages of the game after Agua Doche was adjudged to have committed a foul in the box. With the penalty converted, it's 3-0, the final scoreline, and bragging rights for Pedro de Luanda. A colossal name in African football, but in recent times, Zamalek have looked a shadow of the team that lifted the coveted CAF Champions League trophy back in 2002. Some 20 years later, Zamalek have had a disappointing run of form in the group stage, and having struggled with just a single point from their 3 matches played. The Egyptians were staring down the barrel of a gun, and having already sent their coach packing following their recent disappointing run of form, they were hoping for a change of fortunes and indeed a miracle. This was not to be, though, as a single goal for Wydad was enough to secure the result and send the former champions crashing out of the competition with 2 matches still to be played. looks as clear as daylight as far as Group D qualification is concerned. Zamalek and Sagrada Esperanza will make an early exit out of the competition, and it will just be a matter of confirming who finishes at the top of the standings between Pedro de Luanda and Wydad Athletic Club.
No less than 10 goals were scored on match day 5 in Group A. No surprises, as the business end of the round robin does bring out the best in teams, especially if you are a somewhat desperate Al Ahly who needed to get some daylight between themselves and the rest of the chasing pack behind leaders Mamelodi Sundowns. The champions had the pleasure of playing an away game at home, Al Merrikh the enemy, on match day 5. With little separating the pair on the standings, something had to give, and it gave the way of the champions. First, Percy Tau applied a firm finish in getting Pitso Mosimane's men ahead in the 19th minute, a lead Al Ahly had up until the hour mark when they were pegged back by Ramadan Agab. Game on at 1-1. The closing stages of the game, though, belonged to the Egyptians and them alone. Through Mohammed Sharif and Abdel Kader, the game was over within a minute. Two quick-fire goals handing the champions a handy 3-1 win, probably decisive in identifying which of the two sides are going to be quarter-finalists. At the Al Hilal Stadium, meanwhile, another goal fest, as this time Al Hilal entertained Sundowns. With a victory, or perhaps a point, the Brazilians were going to confirm their place in the next round, but they wanted to confirm their spot and then some. As early as the 2nd minute, Peter Shalulile had done precisely what he does best before he was joined on the goal scorer's sheet by a screamer from new signing Tebogo Mokoena. Goal of the season, perhaps? Yes. Try as they did to get back into the game, the hosts were simply outplayed. Tapela Morena with a second-half brace in confirming the points for Sundowns, 4-2 winners on the day to reach 13 points in Group A, the most to date in the competition. Unbeaten then, 4 wins and 5 for the South African champions, who end their group stage campaign with a home tie against Al Merrikh. Already safely in the quarterfinals are the 2016 champions, while their victory on match day 5 left Al Ahly on the verge of qualification as well. All the pressure on the Sudanese pair then, in 3rd and 4th ahead of match day 6.
Despite suffering a setback after their defeat to ES Setif on match day 4, Amazulu were in high spirits and still hopeful that they could get the full haul of 3 points as they came up against Raja Casablanca at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. With both sides having suffered defeats in their previous group games, it was perhaps then a question of who would bounce back the quickest and come out swinging as the two sides clashed. The visitors seemed the more determined to do just that as they launched a quick attack and struck in the 6th minute to grab an early lead. Lesotho's goal-scoring chances were few and far between, with Veli Motwa desperately trying to keep Benny McCarthy's men in the game. Despite his heroics, Elias Haddad managed to slot away a second, and the game was beyond doubt as he stuck a dagger through the hearts of many Lesotho hopeful, with the result effectively putting an end to Amazulu's.
That is just outrageous.
CAF Confed Cup group stage business is also winding down. A good thing for Zanaco, who have struggled to impose themselves in Group A. They were at home to group honours chasing Al Ahly Tripoli on match day 4. Despite their best efforts at home, they still ended up on the losing end of a 5-goal thriller. It started with a penalty. Mohamed El Fakir on the money as early as the 13th minute. Not his first spot kick of the day, as he was able to bury another one after the hour mark. In between, Abraham Siankombo had pulled a goal back before in the 82nd minute it was all square. Jubilation for the Zambians, who had fought back once again, this time through Moses Phiri. The last laugh, however, would belong to the visitors. They were able to steal the points as late as the 92nd minute, the winner coming through Moatez Al-Mehdi. Thrilling, entertaining, enthralling, all of the above, right down to the final whistle. in Lusaka. A win that left Al Ahly Tripoli still in the hunt for both a top 8 spot and group honours. The other group game seeing Sfaxien hold Pyramids to a 1-1 draw. And this meant with 2 rounds to go, Sfaxien's hopes were fast dwindling in third place, 0 points for Zanaco of Zambia. The highlight of the upcoming match day 5 is the impending clash between 1 and 2 when Pyramids travel to Tripoli, which could see the group standings change a little, with the pair swapping places should the hosts get the job done. 5 points adrift, Sfaxien were running out of chances. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates and their form on the continent was fast turning heads. They were out to continue with that when on match day 4 they hosted Royal Leopards, whom not so long before they had firmly beaten in Bombela. Having started slowly in that game as well, the Buccaneers were slow out the blocks once again, but they did finally get their reward a little into the second half, phansi esigodini sikaMamizela. A cross-come shot from Fortune Makaringe would nestle into the back of the net via the keeper and then the post, the start of a bullish second half from the Ghost, who would go on to add another 2 goals in the second 45. The hosts exchanged some great passes in releasing Kabelo Dlamini, who neatly tucked a finish away. Credit to Goodman Mosele in this regard. All before, in finally hammering the nail into their visitors, Terence Vukamanja nodded home his side's third. 9 goals in 2 matches scored for Pirates against the Leopards of Eswatini. Another 3 points in the bag. Tied between the top 3 in Group B, 2 points separating the Buccaneers at the summit from JS Saoura in third, one of the more competitive groups in the competition to date. Leopards far behind in the rearview mirror. Goal difference of -10, 0 points from their 4 matches. What happened then when Al Masri were home to DRC outfit Association Sportive Otoho? 2 of Group C's more fancied outfits got down to business in Alexandria, the hosts looking the part early on, which left few surprised when they did go ahead in the 83rd minute. Up until then, chance after chance had gone a-begging. Up stepped Hassan Ali to rifle home the winner for the Egyptians. A second victory of the campaign, tight, but all the same important in earning 3 points. Especially with what had transpired earlier in the day. TP Mazembe had visited Cotton Sport in Garoa, and in an entertaining affair, 2-2 read the scoreboard after the final whistle, the scoring starting as early as the 15th minute and rounded off in the 5th minute of added time. Sabu Maru rifled the hosts ahead, Jebteki Tambala the man to level up a little before the break for Mazembe, a header at the back post. A finish almost as impressive as this own goal by Godet Masengo. In trying to deal with a threat, he beat his own keeper to send the home fans into delirium in the second half. They had every reason to believe they were on the way to a crucial victory, ahead up until the 95th minute. A dagger through the home hearts when Kevin Mondego had his name on the score sheet to earn a late point for Mazembe, which left them in the mix for group honours and passage into the quarterfinals. After the brace of matches in match week 4, it was Al Masri ahead of Mazembe in Group C, only on goal difference, with each side on 2 wins, a draw and defeat after 4 matches. Otoho in third, not too far behind on 4 points. Even Cotton Sport still in with a shout, only 4 points the difference in the group. Group D of the Confederation Cup is standing out as the most difficult to call. Going into match week 4, all 4 sides were still with interest in how the standings looked. Simba had ambitions of being terrible hosts to RS Berkane, as they had been for ASEC Mimosas in the only home game the Tanzanians had played to date. The National Stadium was expectant against the visiting Moroccans, who had won twice at home, yet lost their only away tie after 3 match weeks. What then was going to be the story in Dar es Salaam? Pape Ousmane Sako said, I will be the story. With a minute to go before the break, the Senegalese ace decided to do it all himself, dancing into the box before beating a number of defenders and then tucking the ball into the back of the net. A goal worthy of all 3 points for Simba, who did ask the right questions in the contest. And while Berkane thought they had done enough to earn a point in the second half, their celebrations were cut short by the offside flag. The victory, a second in 4 matches for Simba, took the Tanzanian outfit to the summit of Group D. Only 3 points, though, the difference between them and bottom-placed Union Sportive of Niger. In between, Mimosas and Berkane neck and neck in second and third. Going into match day 5, Zanaco were asked again to play host, looking to earn a first victory of the competition. Sfaxian came visiting as the other strugglers in Group A. Their away record reading 2 matches played, 2 defeats, and they were tested early on by the hosts. Keeper Amen Damen with a quick save to keep the hosts out early on. He had 0 chance, however, when Boyd Musonda in the 31st minute released a bullet from range. It's a bullet that nestled into the bottom corner, and with it handed Zanaco their first victory in the group stages. A good thing it was at home. Plenty of reason to celebrate for the Lusaka faithful, who waited 5 matches before they could celebrate a victory. In Benghazi, meanwhile, the top 2 went head-to-head for the right to occupy the inside lane after 5 rounds of matches, a clash that was to be of quite some significance. Pyramids had already beaten Al Ahly Tripoli already and remained unbeaten in the process. Small margins the difference at the end of the day, a tie decided by an own goal in the 54th minute. Omar Gabe, the unfortunate party to score into his own net, handing the hosts the win and control of Group A. 2 points the difference between the top 2, who have both confirmed their passage into the knockouts. Sfaxian's best efforts were only good enough for 4 points after 5 matches. Zanaco worse off with a round remaining. March the 20th was arguably the best showing yet for Royal Leopards. They made the trip to Benghazi, still trying to find a first win in Group B against Al Ittihad. It was the hosts who, through a penalty from Sawad Al-Wafali, went ahead a little before the break, which brought another side out of the tourists. Not once but twice did they find the back of the net after the break. First, Tabiso Mokenkwane levelled matters in the 58th minute, and then in the 66th, Bongani Dlamini had the Eswatini outfit ahead. The thoughts of a victory, though, were quashed in the closing stages. Al-Mizrati first to level matters with 20 minutes to go, and then in added time, Eswatini hearts were broken. Al-Wafali back at it to steal the win, close but no cigar for Leopards. Late is great for Al Ittihad. The matchday 5 task of stopping Orlando Pirates fell at the feet of JS Saoura of Algeria. They exchanged pleasantries with the South Africans in Algiers, and for the second time running against the Buccaneers, a 2-0 defeat was the result. In the opening round, Happy Jele and Mandile Shandu were on the score sheet. This time around, Ntsikelelo Nyauza opened the scoring in the 48th minute with a fine header from a Dion Hotto ball in, all before Kabelo Dlamini, for a second match running, scored on the continent to secure yet another victory for the former Kings of Africa, who now have scored the most number of goals in the group stages of the 2 flagship club competitions. The number sits on 15 from their 5 games, a single defeat alongside 4 wins, 2 points clear of Al Ittihad in Group B. Top met bottom meanwhile in Group C, when at the Borg El Arab Stadium, Al Mazri took more winning ways and looking to wrap up group honours with Cotton Spore, fast running out of chances, in desperation mode with 0 wins in 4 matches. They would have felt buoyed by an early penalty save from keeper Gardin Alambatam, who stood strong in keeping the scoreboard from ticking. He was to be beaten in the 35th minute though, the first of 2 goals his side would concede. Mohamed Abdel Latif, or Grendo to those that know, opened the scoring before being an integral part of the build-up to the second, which was tapped in by Ahmed Allah. 3 points for a third time for the Egyptians, and safely into the knockouts. With the round remaining, Al Masry cannot be caught by anyone other than Mazembe, who lost ground having been held to a 2-all draw at Otoho in third, while the Congolese side remains with an outside chance. Cotton Sports Road has come to an end. They'll be hosting Otoho in the final match day. With the round remaining in Group D, all 4 teams remain with a real chance of making the last 8. ASEC Mimosas and Simba battled at the Stade del Almatia in Benin, a battle that would be dominated by the home side as early as the 16th minute. They already announced their intentions, Obin Kramo arriving in the box to apply the finish. The second was more impressive. From a corner, the ball was worked wide and then back forward, all for Stefan Aziz Ki to unleash a pearler of a shot that left the keeper with 0 chance, another one for the matchday 5 scrapbook. And while the hosts did miss a penalty as well, they would go on to round out the comfortable victory with a third coming from Karim Konate, who rose highest from a corner to hand ASEC a third victory of the campaign, top of the table with a round remaining. They're only 2 points ahead of the duo of Bekhan and Simba, who on 7 points going into the final match day look forward to home fixtures. USGN, lying at the bottom of the standing, still have a chance of progress should the other results go their way, and they in turn stun the Tanzanians. There's plenty to play for in the final round of group matches of the CAF Confederation Cup. Quarterfinal places and group honours up for grabs. Bekhan meet ASEC Mimosas in Group D. Cotton Sport at home as well. Sfaxian play Al Ahly Tripoli, and Mazembe entertain Al Masry in Group C, 1 against 2. April and all its thrills and spills lie in wait. The business end is nearly upon us. For now though, it's good night and goodbye.